everybody, and welcome back to our live recordings of Arc 6. We are doing chapters 36 and 37 today. We're super excited to be back with you guys. Shit's getting intense. We got our lovely cast. I'll introduce them. Before we get started, just some announcements. Of course, we are still holding our Arc 7 auditions, so if you want to audition, now's the perfect time. You have a couple weeks left. We are closing our auditions June 27th. 2025 at 3 p.m. EST. So if you have an audition by then, I will just cut it off there for ya. Podcast, I am so sorry. I am in end of the semester hell with teaching. I am trying my very best to make some time to edit. I just have not had the time yet. Podcast will be coming up. The boys have caught up with Arc 9. We have an Arc 6 podcast as well that the boys did with me a few months ago. So you do have a lot of content coming your way. I am so sorry for the delay. Thank you again to the ReZero Reddit as well as the ReZero Discord server. They are two separate entities I learned this week. So feel free to go follow them both. They're in our community tab. But to be fair, we work with everyone on both ReZero servers anyway. So go follow them, give them lots of love. And chat about us with them. Yeah. Okay, without further ado, let's bring in the team.
I don't think I watched it.
Yay, we're live.
I can't.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. As always, we're going to introduce ourselves from top to bottom. Take it away, Al.
I am Al. I am louder because I'm trying to shout to, signal I'm stuck in the basement.
Holy fuck.
Holy.
Someone's got some energy today. Who left the monster in the basement?
That would be me, Connor, your voice of Julius and Rom, and one of the hosts of the ReZero podcast. Welcome in, everyone.
Welcome.
Oh, right. Sorry. I'm Dreamy. I'm one of the editors of the studio Reverie, and I'm excited to be here.
Yay!
Woo! I am Carmen, the other editor of Studio Reverie, and I am also the voice of your lovely Melee, as always.
Woohoo! I'm another editor. I also own the channel. I do some random shit here. I'm Amelia. Today I'm Shala, and I'm also Anastasia. I think she has lines. And yay, I'm Kyle's.
She has lines
Hello,
in
everybody.
quotes.
I'm Tealdi. I don't own anything here. I will be the stand-in for Beatrice and the narrator for chapter 37 today.
Hi!
Hello everyone, Wolf here. I voice Subaru, and I'm also a co-host of the ReZero podcast. And also, I was here when it started. I win!
Who slipped the cocaine in our shit today?
Old ass.
We're all on something else. Sorry.
Sorry, what?
Sorry. That was a little aggressive.
Hey, look, mine's not cocaine, it's soju, so I'm fine.
Okay.
Oh,
Right.
nice. Yeah, we should have soju before. That's so smart. I always do better when I record drunk.
We should always drink before stream.
We should.
I
Yeah,
never have
I'm
before,
sure that will
so
make very
welcome
healthy
to
habits.
a brand new experience.
Woo! This is going to be great.
So note to self, do not unmask on stream ever again. Equated with cocaine usage.
Do as we say, not as we do. Yes, that's our disclaimer.
Yes.
I will let all of you know I am twice over the legal age to drink in America.
I thought you said the
don't
legal
worry
limit for
about
a second.
that. No.
I'm twice over the legal limit.
What?
No, that's not hilarious tonight.
Oh my god.
ReZero left. Oh my. Ow, what was
Oh my
that?
God,
We
what
could not
happened?
hear
You
you. The basement garbled you.
I think Connor came down and decided you were talking too much.
Connor went and yanked you
Exactly.
further down.
He yanked your chain.
He came back and grabbed my beer.
Well, I
Without
think we're
further
getting
ado.
a bit too off focus, so before we get too cracked out, let's refocus. We are here today, guys, for some Arc 6, Chapter 46 and 47.
Is there a web novel version of that one ReZero OVA where they're all drunk?
You
I know there's a
think so.
light novel
Memory so.
version, I think.
We should do that sometime while drunk.
We should do that.
What?
Everyone has to be
chaos.
drunk. Even the characters that aren't even drunk.
Yeah.
ReZero live reading.
Just
but,
act it.
but each time we get to a more ridiculous side story, we get more drunk.
But guys,
no.
mainly
Oh.
can't drink.
Well, you know she murders.
You know, if she can
Yeah,
kill
for a
people,
while,
maybe she can drink too. Can she pay taxes?
I feel like if you can murder, you could probably knock back a few shots. I don't think we could condone murdering here, but anyways.
You know, this is a very excessive statement, but here at Studio Reverie, we do not condone murder, believe it or not.
Believe it or not.
I know.
I do.
Without further ado,
Oh, no.
I think we're ready for the... Connor, how could you dare pose
I found it.
Quick.
That
Hold
photo
on.
is
Open
crazy.
that link before it goes away. There.
I
Okay,
was just
I'm
gonna
good.
say, I feel like
My
the
only-
can murder thing is like, that's kind of illegal. You know, just like drinking.
Remy,
You don't know what
you're
my
fine.
clearance lets me do.
Underage.
Jesus
Yeah.
Christ.
I'm gonna bookmark this.
Oh my
We all
god!
did. It's called Alcohol Panic. It's on Witch Cult Translations.
Riemann water.
Oh, Riemann Water. Sorry. Oh,
Bro,
very similar to the
bro.
one. Sorry, Riemann Water. Alcohol
Banished.
Panic. Beautiful photo of Rem. Anyways.
I think
Bring her
Melee will
back.
get stitched up. I'm just saying, I think Melee will get stitched up more for murder than underage drinking.
We do
Yeah.
not condone underage drinking at Studio Reverie. I legally have to say
Absolutely
that
not.
as an educator.
And the murder part too. And the
Yeah, we
murder.
only
And the
condone it at
And
home.
the murder, I
And the murder.
suppose.
In fact.
Holy fuck. This is a speed run to get fired. All right.
Y'all should begin before it goes worse.
Let's buckle up. All right, we got narrators. Oh shit, I got a lot right away. All right, we got our voice actors. Okay, nice. Al, you ready?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
Not
your
drunk.
audio sounds great.
You do sound very nice.
Thank
Less
you.
garbled than before.
My wires were fucked up. I had to
Oh shit.
resolve that.
Did the
Connor
little
plugs
wiggle
them back
waggle.
in.
I had to do that.
Yeah,
The
they were
wiggle
drunk.
waggle. All right, when you're ready, take it away, Al.
All right. Arc 6, Chapter 36. A Place of Relief.
What does that term parallel worlds mean?
Subaru felt as if his breath had been knocked out of him as he heard Echidna's question, sinking into silence as a result. During that time, the gazes of everyone in the room turned towards him. Although there were various emotions across everyone's faces, what was the most common was the emotion dubbed doubt. Everyone was treating the term parallel world as something of an unknown. In other words, that meant that Natsuki Subaru, before losing his memories, had never bothered to explain it to him.
Parallel world. Come to think of it, Subaru used to say that before from time to time.
It does ring a bell. Though, from the way he acts on a daily basis, I hadn't paid any attention to that kind of nonsense.
Putting Amelia Chan aside, it's incredible how different Ram acts towards me.
She came as a stark contrast to Amelia, who was adorably immersed deep in thought, her finger on her lip. Ram had coldly snorted out a "huh" in response to Subaru's wry-faced remark. However, their initial surprise had been softened thanks to having left this one cushion behind. The previous Subaru had never bothered to speak up about the parallel world, not to Amelia or Ram, nor even to any of the others who he'd supposedly adventured together with. He did not know for sure what that meant, but
Were there some kind of restrictions to it? When I was sent to this world, was I oath-bound by a god or goddess into not speaking about it, or the like? And, in the first place, what kind of mission am I here for?
He cocked his head. However, not even the M of the mission he had been entrusted with came to mind. Presumably, Subaru had been summoned into this parallel world by someone working behind the scenes that had some expectation of him. By Subaru's reckoning currently, the likelihood of this someone being something like a god was very high. This god or whatever that he did not remember had given him some kind of role and sent him to this parallel world. Thinking about it, this was the sort of pact one would find with these parallel world thingamajigs. So, if losing his memories was something that this god found inconvenient, he could hopefully expect some follow up to improve his situation. Subaru wanted to believe this god was not the cruel sort who would just throw him into this fantasy world without giving him some generous benefits. Or perhaps.
I'd better find out if it's actually something I can't touch on.
Subaru?
Subaru licked his parched lips and searched for a response for the situation. He winked at Beatrice, who was looking at him with unease, having caught ear of his muttering. He decided that he would address the question that had been posed to him about this parallel world. Even if, by some chance, speaking about it was forbidden by this godly being, it was difficult to imagine that there would be some sort of drastic penalty that he could not recover from were he to touch this taboo. Surely, as soon as he would have spoken the taboo, there would not be anything drastic that would happen, such as, I don't know, being assailed by unbearable pain. With a little bit of anxiety, Subaru gently got his breathing under control, and...
Well, about this parallel world I spoke of, the word itself is written as per different and world. In other words, I mean that the place we're in right now is a separate world.
In a separate world? A parallel world?
That's why I say parallel world. Yeah.
Following Subaru's explanation, Amelia mulled over what he'd said, rolling the words out on her tongue. She wasn't the only one to react like this. The others in the room were also pondering over that word. As it was from the pronunciation, isekai, they had received the word itself as an unknown, though he had presumed that from how long their comprehension of the expression parallel world was. Apparently, it seemed like the idea of a different world was not one common in this world. Simultaneously, Subaru slapped his body to check for any changes.
Nothing seems to have happened to me.
Putting it into words, Subaru ensured that nothing untoward had happened to him. As far as he could tell right now, there were no signs of any abnormalities having occurred. There was no pain or no numbness. Nor there was a strange voice sadly addressing him with, "You have violated your instructions!" Or the people in his surroundings transforming into a flock of cranes saying, "I did not tell you not to do that!" He had managed to deal with all the worries he'd had without any issues arising.
This isn't what I expected.
Certainly, he had thought that he hadn't talked about the parallel world due to having some sort of reason. However, nothing really came to his mind for something that he'd get caught up in regarding this matter. Subaru cocked his head to the side at the sensation of having parried that. Then Julius raised his hand with a, "May I?"
I now know what the expression parallel world means. I can take it as a term you yourself have coined, but there's a part of me that is thinking about its implication. Why do you reference that parallel world so often?
Oh, that's right! Just explaining the meaning of the word parallel world isn't much of an explanation. In other words...
In other words?
Following Julius's questioning, Subaru realized he had cut his explanation short, and clearing his throat, he went on to say,
I come from this parallel world thing. I wasn't born and raised in this world. I'm some alien who got mixed up into this world halfway through. That's why, for me, this place is a parallel world.
Indeed, now he had clearly explained his position and circumstances. "I am someone who came to this world from a parallel world. Nice to meet you." Roughly speaking, this is what Subaru had told them. It was easy to imagine that Amelia and the others would be shaken by that bold confession. After all, it must have been a bombshell to them since they were unaware of the existence of parallel worlds. It really was no surprise that all the common sense they had up until now had been thrown out of whack, along with the shock they felt along with it, like their world had been turned upside down. After finishing his confession, Subaru took note of their concerns and cursed his own heedlessness. If he had made Amelia and Beatrice feel as if they had been engulfed by a maelstrom of confusion, if he had made them do something like grieve, then he was responsible of having brought that about. How would he comfort such beautiful girls if they were to break down into tears? He had no experience with this. So, with a few seconds passing, feeling these anxieties, Subaru turned his head towards them. He had imagined that he would find them looking pale, blood drained from their visage, with confusion etched on their faces. However,
So you mean you're from beyond the Great Waterfall?
The Great Waterfall?
Subaru's eyes widened at Amelia, who had timidly asked this question whilst frowning in thought. They were words he had not come across before. Waterfall, he thought must have been a cascade or something, but this great waterfall must be a big version of one. Perhaps he could think of it as a huge cascade?
Actually, no. What sort of connection did this big cascade have with the parallel world in the first place? No, definitely not. It's nothing to do with waterfalls. I'm talking about a world that's completely different from this place, and what your common knowledge is and stuff.
So, then you are from beyond the Great Waterfall. What do they call it in your hometown, Barasu? Actually, no. I guess it's probably the other way around, that it would be your hometown. The countries here surrounded by the Great Waterfall would be a parallel world. Your wild behavior makes some sense to me now as well.
That is correct. That must be the reason why I could not find anything, no matter how much I investigated Natsuki-kun's origins. Because he is from beyond the Great Waterfall.
Well, hey! How are you all so quickly convinced with that?
It wasn't just Amelia who had agreed with his conclusion. Even Ram and Echidna, who both appeared to be quite intelligent, had agreed with it. For Subaru, their levels of belief towards this mysterious waterfall were nigh incomprehensible. The thought that there was a parallel world beyond a great waterfall, on the other side of a waterfall, where the heck was this town of Wonderland?
You may have no idea about it, considering you've forgotten so much, in fact. But regarding the Great Waterfall, it's at the far reaches of the world, and there are a few stories left behind from people coming from beyond it, I suppose.
I do quite like the sound of that. At the far reaches of the world.
The Great Waterfall is said to be impossible to cross over, with the exception of dragons. It's the border between here and there. There's no one who knows what is on the other side of it. So, on the rare occasions that someone crosses over from that world, no one holds any basis to deny the words they spoke as lies or falsehoods, I suppose.
Beatrice explained it for him on the basis of the assent of the people listening in, who were showing their acceptance for it. The contents were iffy. There were some things that were difficult to imagine for Subaru with him not being an expert in the circumstances of this world. However, thinking about the term Great Waterfall and its present explanation now...
So, this place feels like a floating continent, and you're unable to cross over to another continent without a dragon? Quit with those horribly disgruntled sighs there! You're gonna hurt my feelings.
Ram looked at Subaru, who'd been trying to justify it as best as he could, with a sense of staggering disappointment. However, the others also seemed to be regarding Subaru's talk the same way, pretty much. In the end, his floating continent theory was likely incorrect.
If I'm off base, then I'm off base. I get it. But I was sort of hoping to have a great eureka moment riding on Dragonback, if my current theory had been correct.
If you keep talking about it like that, Onisan's adorable ground dragon's gonna start sulking, isn't she?
Yeah. That black ground dragon is mine, right? Let me have a ride on her later!
I'm gonna be as well. I'm gonna be sulking too. Master, I think you should take better care of me and appreciate me better and love me more. Now that you've lost your memories, let our relationship Saiyo Soku from 0!
You're noisy and damn Clinny! Also, don't be so quick to poke fun at me losing my memories like you're talking about someone else!
Gala noisily joined in the conversation, with Meili sitting clutching her own knees. Though Shala had intruded rather brusquely and said that was something which Subaru was now really grateful for. Of course, fretting too much about it was tough. From there, Subaru shifted his attention with a glance towards its surroundings. In his original world, though depending on the situation, Subaru had a reputation for not being able to read the mood from the people in his surroundings. However, no matter how unsuited he was at it, if the emotions were strong enough, then they could be easily read or seen. Not just Amelia and Beatrice, but also Ram, Julius, Anastasia, or rather Echidna, their expressions were all showing worry towards Subaru. For better or for worse, before losing his memories, Subaru would have been doing pretty well with the ladies. How enviable. How he would like to be told what kind of magic he used. Even if he were, he did not at all believe he could put it into practice now.
Anyways, to sum up everything that's been said, at the edge of this world, there's a cascade called the Great Waterfall, and occasionally people come from beyond it. And so, you're saying I'm one of them as well?
From what I've heard from Subaru, I can only assume that's the case. No?
Subaru exchanged looks with the wondering Amelia, his arms crossed by his side as he painstakingly hummed. To be precise, it was not Subaru's intended course of action to run counter to the general understanding which everyone had of the world. Nonetheless, even if Subaru thought that the parallel world and the Great Waterfall were unrelated, he knew he wouldn't make any progress in the situation if he continued to talk about it.
Long story short, it's...
Within this world, there was no concept of parallel worlds. He didn't know whether this beyond the Great Waterfall, as Amelia and the others had recognized it, suggested the existence of yet another world, or the world Subaru was in. In actuality, there may be other continent-like stuff across the waterfall, and from there may be records left behind of a figure like Columbus who made it there, taking him as a weirdo. If so, he could safely say that a correct understanding of parallel worlds for them was already a lost cause.
By the way, did I never mention anything about parallel worlds back when I had my memories?
Thinking back to then, once in a while you make some mention of the term parallel world, but this is the first time we've really talked properly about it.
Same as Amelia, in fact.
The others affirmed the answer to his question with gestures, whereas Amelia and Beatrice with words. The prior Subaru had not told them about parallel worlds. Perhaps he deemed that they would not make heads or tails about it, if he'd spoken about it like he had now, or...
Because I had been stopping myself from talking about it. Huh.
Subaru?
No, it's nothing. Hey, if I'm not the only so-called parallel worlder there's been, then do you know anyone else? A person from the other side of the Great Waterfall, or a drifter? Whichever.
Perhaps there were a lot of people drifting in from different worlds. Maybe there was a community of sorts where such people gathered. However, Subaru's hopes were denied by a shake of the head from Julius.
Sorry, the existence of a drifter, as you call it, is very rare. Most people who claim they are from beyond the Great Waterfall are lying. What they say are generally pipe dreams or fabrications. Some of them set their sights on trying to extort people out of money, whereas others are simply trying to influence people with their fanciful beliefs.
Oh, well, Yeah, I can see that happening.
As much as one would like to believe such stories, the majority were the works of fiction or embellished rumors, given that there was no way to make sure. Once one's imagination or creation was let loose with these dreamy stories or ennui tales, they became the breeding grounds of reverie. Even if people who were genuinely from another world like Subaru existed, their words, action, and legacy would be buried under countless falsehoods, rendered impossible to find.
Honestly, my interest in the Great Waterfall is never ending. But it seems it really has no relevance to our current situation. It would be a good idea to simply end this by establishing that the unknown origin of Natsuki-kun and his knowledge have been settled.
Hina had broken what had been an awkward silence that had been forming. Originally, she had been the one asking Subaru about it. Although there were still parts unfamiliar to her and she was most likely unsatisfied, Subaru welcomed her ending the conversation there.
Besides, the more we talk about my original world, the more I'll have to face the problems that I'd left behind. That's already painful and heavy enough.
By concentrating on the state of the emergency in front of him, he could try and distract himself from those feelings.
That's it about me! I understand that you all care about me and love me, but I feel like we aren't going to make any progress talking about this leisurely. Why? First things first.
He did not know what had directly caused his memory loss, but the place where Subaru, with his memories intact, had supposedly last ventured. He wanted to check what had happened there.
Want to check the library of Tegeta, I suppose.
Subaru nodded at Beatrice, who had beaten him to voicing his thoughts out loud. So, with all that said and done, the group headed out towards Tegeta's library. Subaru was feeling quite nervous about what would be awaiting them there. The way there wasn't free of its troubles, though. That was because...
Amelia-chan, why are you holding my hand so tightly?
Well, it's because I'm worried about leaving you by yourself, Subaru. I need to keep you in arm's reach, so I came to the conclusion, given that I'd be good to hold your hands from the get-go.
I mean, I like the simple, quick nature of that conclusion, but like this, it's way more embarrassing!
Subaru lifted the hand that was being held by Amelia, aware that his cheeks were getting flushed. Her slender, cute fingers were gently holding his hand, and he worried about whether his palms were sweating. In reply to Subaru's words, Amelia raised her eyebrows in a huff and said, "Geez."
Don't be like that. Beatrice is also holding your hand, so it's not just us two together.
There's a difference between holding the hands of a child compared to one of a beautiful woman. Like the difference when cold rain is falling again on this day too. Or the difference between the heavens and earth, or night and day.
Sorry. I've got no idea what you're talking about.
Amelia spared Subaru no quarter, what with him having a record for losing his memories as a result of being left to his own devices, even with all the excuses he was spouting out. God-damned memories, and him for having lost them.
Now, that statement is unpardonable, but it's as Amelia said, in fact. Subaru ought to follow along obediently and be well cared for by Betty and Amelia, I suppose.
Oh yeah? This is where we put Beatrice in the middle, being sandwiched between Amelia and me holding hands with you from both sides! Young couple style! I'd be down for that. But wouldn't that not be uncool?
Subaru isn't Subaru unless he's uncool, in fact.
What kind of assessment is that?!
He ended up taking that scathing evaluation from Beatrice as well, who was holding his other hand. Julius, who was leading the way ahead, looked back at Subaru a few times, and Echidna, who had been following right behind him, would explain to them, one by one, what lay around each corner. Ram was sharp-tongued whenever she spoke out. However, Subaru was the only one who knew that, despite her outward appearance, she was suffering inside. He wondered if He wondered if he should talk to someone about her, but he did not know who he could possibly talk to regarding Ram's circumstances. In a way, it was only Shala and Meili who were chatting together with each other at the back of the group who were mentally soothing for Subaru right now.
Well, they're not really going to be useful for anything.
Somehow, it feels that just now wasn't very polite, Oni-san.
Master's mind is always like that. It'd be a waste to dwell on it. You'd be shocked if you all peeked inside. It's all pink anyways. Makes me want to pull away. Pink brain, shameless school.
Don't we either find shame or schooling in you?
Master's doing. My entire knowledge is Master's doing.
Mere conversation with her made his head ache. Whilst they had been exchanging these bouts of conversation, the party had gone up the stairs and arrived at a place called Tegeta, the third floor. It was quite expansive, almost as if it transcended time and space.
So, this place is Tegeda. There are quite a lot of books in here, just as I'd heard.
Subaru breathed in awe as he looked around Tegeta, marveling at the sheer number of books there. Indeed, this was a sight that was beyond anyone's imagination. Subaru was quite the avid reader, reading light novels, manga, strategy guides, the like, etc. But he had never been surrounded by so many books. Naturally, the National Diet Library would probably win, however, only due to the difference in space. Either way, the meaning behind the picturesque scenery in front of him was not just down to the sheer amount of stuff there.
If books of the dead are here, then wouldn't that mean that there are as many books here as people who have died? If it's been recording non-stop since the time of Homo sapiens, then there's literally must be an overwhelming number of records here.
Subaru did not know the scale of this world, but if the records of the dead were inside books, then the quantity of books would be immeasurable. Even if he tried to find a book of interest, such as one with the name of a deceased person he knew, he would not be able to physically find it.
In a modern-day library, a lookup function is indispensable. But here?
Know what you mean by lookup function or whatever, I suppose. However, there is no one else more similar to a librarian here than Betty, in fact. Got no choice but to start checking, I suppose.
This is like looking for 100 yen coin in the middle of a desert.
Warily, Subaru placed his hand on the spine of a book. Pulling the tome from the bookshelf, it easily fit into his hand, and it felt like nothing special when looked at. There was nothing especially particular about it. It was just a plain old book. There was no design to it on the cover other than its title. In all, it could be mundanely described as being a very plain book. When it came to the issues he had with it...
Damn it! Oh, I can't read the title.
The title was written in illegible squiggly characters. From what he had heard from Amelia and the others, the title of the book was meant to be the name of someone deceased. If the dead was someone one shared some connection with, then apparently their memories in life could be read. However, Subaru could not even comprehend what the letters meant in the first place. With his memories now at jeopardy, he doubted that having such a connection would even make sense.
Well, this may be difficult.
Subaru, who had been lost in thought, looked around in surprise at hearing an abrupt shout. In an instant, the book he had picked up was wrenched from his grasp, and Amelia, the performer of said action, stepped back from him, holding the book to her chest.
Amelia-chan?
Don't be so careless! Subaru, don't you understand? You must have lost your memories here. You get that, right?
No! Wow, that's overblowing it!
Amelia said that as her complexion changed. To that, Subaru gave a scratch of his cheek, accompanied by a strained smile. However, it seemed that only Subaru was taking the situation lightly.
Baru, listen to Amelia, in fact. Refrain yourself from acting so impulsively, I suppose.
I agree. You should be careful and refrain yourself from performing such a rash action.
Both Beatrice and Julius had beseeched caution from Subaru, his throat seizing up, unable to reply to either of them. It was not animosity that welled up in his heart, but rather shame from his awkwardness. Certainly, he may have been acting a little too carelessly.
Psst, Master is getting angry. You look so sad, but I don't mind if Master's acting like a pitiful, naughty kid.
Shut up! Don't poke fun at people who are reflecting on themselves!
All right, already. It would be a bother to be interrupted like that again. In truth, Natsuki-kun's actions were a little rash, but we have also already established that.
Her hand covering her mouth, Shala was laughing away at Subaru's mistake. Echidna had forced herself between Subaru and Shala as the former snapped at the latter. Then, whilst gently stroking her scarf with her hand, she said,
Natsuki-kun, you were unable to read the title of the book. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
What you can see here is that losing your memory, as he has, will interfere with your cognitive abilities, such as your literacy skills. That is why he was speaking of parallel worlds.
But Subaru began studying the alphabet when he arrived at Roswell's mansion, in fact.
Echidna, who had tried to speak confidently about it, was left dumbfounded by Beatrice's retort. Not paying any regard to Echidna's lack of response, Beatrice crossed her small arms.
Subaru could not read or write iScript until he came to the mansion, I suppose. The elder sister of the two sisters, who served as his instructor, should know about that too, in fact.
Yes, it is exactly as Beatrice-sama says. From the start, Barasu could not read or write, so I dedicated myself to teach him. It seems my efforts were wasted, seeing in his current state.
Sorry! I wasn't aware there'd been such an episode!
Subaru raised his voice in apology in reply to Ram's resentful complaint. Taking a sidelong glance at the occurring exchange, Echidna cleared her throat.
Ahem. It seems I was way off the mark. You can forget what I said.
No, it is not as off the mark as you may think. At least we have discovered that Subaru's memories were lost after coming to Lagunica. In other words, Barasu is just useless baggage that does not serve any purpose in the library.
Ram scathingly added to Julius's confirmation. Subaru remained silent as he did not wish to stir up any more trouble upon himself. However, it was Julius who spoke with a short nod, saying, Miss Ram's words are correct.
Her manner of saying it aside, that is how it is. In any case, we cannot let Subaru relive what happened the night before. We should be the ones to look for clues in here.
Yes, that would be safer.
I do not have any objections. Are Amelia-sama and Beatrice-sama okay with it?
Beatrice nodded back towards Ram, saying, I understand, I suppose. And Amelia turned towards Subaru, looking at him with quite the serious expression in her eyes.
Subaru, please wait here without doing anything rash. The memories you lost, me and the others, we will find them.
Oh! Okay! Understood! It feels annoying not being able to do anything, but I believe in Amelia-chan and everyone else! I will wait here quietly.
Can you really wait here quietly? You won't wander off as you please?
I don't need reminding! I'll be fine! I'm not a 5-year-old kid! I can wait here quietly! I can promise if you want.
So, maybe you're not going to be quiet after all.
What do you mean?!
Granted, he had brought out that promise to make her feel some peace of mind. However, it had ended up in only sowing more mistrust. Looking around his surroundings, he saw that Julius and Echidna aside, Beatrice and Ram were merely shrugging their shoulders in reply as if to say, that's how it is, in any case.
Subaru is going to quietly wait here at the front, okay?
In response to Amelia's sincere appeal, Subaru decided that he would reluctantly wait for them at the front of the library. He sat down, hugging his knees, watching over Amelia and the others who had begun to split into two separate groups to search for the library. In one group were Amelia, Beatrice, and Ram, and the other Julius and Echidna. Looking on with an air of confusion, it seemed that Amelia and Echidna, respectively, were leading these uneven teams.
Teaming up to search must be sort of like insurance so that they don't end up like Onisan. After all, Onisan's strong point is that he attracts trouble.
I may have no memories, but that I have no memories is the issue, so obviously I can't even answer back to that. No. I don't want an assassin of all people to tell me this.
Because I'm totally concerned with trifling matters like that.
I don't think you can call that a trifling matter! In the first place.
After that loud, straight man act, clicking his tongue, Subaru turned to face her. The voice originated far from the bookshelves Subaru was standing next to, from a girl with hair arranged in a braid leaning against the wall, Meili. She had a coquettish expression on her face, not at all appropriate for her age, and with a "What?" she tilted her head.
I thought you had joined the search. You not going to?
Yeah, I won't join it. After all, I'm not really a proper companion of Onisan and Onesan's friends.
Not really a proper companion.
I told you so, didn't I? I'm an assassin. Well, as I failed my mission, it's more like a former assassin. Originally, I was sent here just to help out, not bothered about anything more.
In other words, I get the feeling that this was your bail condition. Whether a former one or whatever, it's still quite the drastic decision to take to adventure along with an assassin among your companions.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I suppose there really is something wrong with him then.
Meili giggled and placed her hand on her mouth, drawing that chat to a close. Subaru snorted at her attitude and...
I get why Meili wouldn't go with them. But what about you?
Huh? Me? I cannot read or write anything, so I'm of no use whatsoever. Just like Master, the book's contents are all nonsense to me.
Shala was leaning against the wall on the side opposite from Meili, laughing as she responded. She proceeded to move over and pulled Subaru by his left arm towards her voluptuous body. Such a soft, warm feeling. Instinctively, he untangled himself from her.
What?
Ah! Master's such a meanie!
I'm not a meanie! Stop that! It's improper for a girl to have done that! Such things should only be reserved for the guy you like! No, don't do that, because even a guy you like would be turned off if you came at him like this so abruptly. You're doing yourself absolutely no good by behaving like this.
Boo! Talking about a girl's sense of dignity again? Master seriously never changes.
Shala pouted at Subaru as she protested against his attitude. However, hearing her words had made Subaru look down in embarrassment.
Master?
You think I haven't changed as well?
Subaru blurted this out to Shala almost instinctively. He had heard this phrase, that he had not changed, several times over the course of the few hours he had been awake. It had seemed like a salvation to him to hear this, but also, at the same time, a curse.
I'm both pleased I haven't changed, and sad that I haven't changed.
I'm not so sure.
Nevertheless, despite such turmoil brewing inside Subaru, Shala had said that so readily. Subaru was, as expected, astonished at her reply. Perhaps it had been a mistake to have let her hear some of his more delicate worries.
You... No. It was idiotic of me to have asked you that.
Master is not an idiot! If you're gonna put it like that, I'm gonna get angry, Master or not. Master is a wonderful person. I want you to be confident in yourself.
I really don't understand your position in all of this.
He would point and laugh at a depressed Subaru and then get angry with Subaru when he was self-deprecative. The only thing that stayed consistent was that the topic was him. Hearing Subaru's question, Shala pushed her ample-sized chest forward and smiled with her hands on her hips.
Whether you've changed or not, Master is still Master. So I don't really give a toss. So, long as you please, Master, I will always follow you.
Even if it results in crazy stuff?
Well, even if we end up in strange situations, I can always pry things open by force. Master may have forgotten, but that is a relationship between Master and me.
All her candid words, everything Shala had said, showing nary a trace of duplicity or anything like that, struck him that they had, many times over, causing Subaru to give a faint gulp. He turned his face away so that Shala would not be able to see it.
How, Nissan?
Seeing Meili looking at him there, he turned his face back away to the opposite side again.
Master? What's wrong?
Jeez!
Subaru could not escape to his left, nor to his right. He could only kneel down and look down at the floor holding his head in his arms so nobody could see his face now. Subaru got the sensation that Meili and Shala were looking at each other with him curled up in between them. They would not understand. No, he wished for them to not understand. He felt like he had been saved by those vapid, vacuous, gap-filled words. He felt that she had shown that he did not need to get more worked up, more eloquently in her attitude than her words.
Oh, Nissan, you're strange.
Master was strange from the very beginning. But I love him for that, too.
Subaru had nothing he could say in response to the exchange of those girls that went way over what he could comprehend. He merely felt like the feelings of tension rushing through his mind had eased it off, if only a tad. Subaru managed to shake off the urge and sit up just a few minutes before Amelia and the others returned without the harvest. And that's the chapter.
Woo! Woo! Dun, dun, dun.
So,
God, he's just insufferable.
he is, isn't he?
Am
Am I doing a good job of being Arc 1 Subaru again? I'm trying to get as annoying as possible.
No, you're doing an amazing job, Wolf.
Great. Excellent. No, no.
Excellent. No.
How is it?
Maybe you're too good at this. You should look at yourself a bit.
No, not like that.
Maybe it's time for some self-reflection.
I love that moment where the Subaru's getting all sulky and stroppy, and Shauna's like, "What's going on?" He's like, "Hey, stop harassing me! I'm trying to self-reflect here." Clearly not thinking at all about what he's saying.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
He doesn't
also
think.
random bomb for the
He
cast. Subaru's from a parallel world, whatever that means to them.
Isekai
Yeah,
gene.
quote-unquote major bomb, and they're all just like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Weirdness checks out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that explains a lot, actually.
Yeah, that explains why you're so weird.
question.
Fuck.
Fuck, that makes sense. Shit.
So that explains
It's
why
been
you.
solved now.
That explains why you're so weird. It's not just that you're a weirdo. You're also a weirdo from a different place entirely. Oh wow.
It's not that just you're crazy, but like you're also physically crazy.
So the conclusion you can come with here is either Subaru is a scammer and like a right fucker, or he's an idiot crazy person that's actually from another world and is incompetent and can't do anything. So take your pick.
It's like that scammer bit is also you would also have to believe, oh yeah, no, he didn't just lose his memories. He's pretending to have lost his memories and suddenly be like, oh, I am from the Great Waterfall.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's probably like the only reason that they believe him when he's saying that is because he would have no context for it otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I mean,
guy.
I really appreciate that Teppei is making, like, Subaru get anxious about a lot of things here that, like, he realistically would be anxious about. Like, why would the previous me not tell everyone that I'm an isekai protagonist? That seems very strange. I'm an isekai protagonist.
I just gonna blow up or something when I say this?
Yeah, like, is there a
There's no
penalty?
way I just, like, collapse in pain.
Him
There's
immediately
no
going
taboo
to...
for this,
okay,
right?
there must be a god or goddess involved with this. And, I really hope this penalty doesn't involve terrible, terrible pain. It's like, oh, fuck. Okay, Teppei.
Yeah. I literally had to throw in nah, there's no way there's a penalty here.
Immediately dies.
This is a completely consequence-free action.
Huzzah!
And he's like, huh? Wait, there were no consequences? What the fuck was this guy doing? Why did he tell anyone that I'm the protagonist of this world?
Yeah, he's like waiting for the anvil to fall on his head and just doesn't
Yeah.
come down. He's like, huh, what the fuck?
I love how he's continuing on from his attitude of Arc 1 where he feels like he's entitled to the cheats and like the fucking the reverence and stuff, and so he's like, well, you know, the god has put me in a pretty shitty position right now, and as the protagonist that's pretty bad, so he's probably gonna be very, you know, he's gonna be nice to me if I fuck up on stuff, because I don't know anything right now, you know, like, it's fine.
But if a god did put me here, then that means that me losing my memory must not be that big of a deal. So win for me.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's also really sad seeing how little Subaru cares kind of just about losing his memories, and everyone else is really upset.
I mean, it's not like he knows what he's missing.
Well, no, exactly, but that's the point, right?
Yeah,
Like,
fair.
it's just, I am
He
me.
doesn't know.
He's separated from that, right? Yeah.
Doesn't know all the stuff that he had to go through, or you know, all the big key moments.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't even know Return by Death's a thing.
Yeah, but he's not missing it because he doesn't know that.
Exactly. He can't miss what isn't there, right?
Yeah, there's no
Right.
FOMO for it at this point in time.
If you have no memory of it,
No FOMO.
Sorry, I don't understand what you're saying. Sorry, I don't understand what you're saying. Some parts of him, at the very least, remain the same, even though he's become a, let's say,
A cringe lord again.
worse person. Yeah, a cringe
Yeah.
lord.
a cringe. Yep, I think that's the
Character
best.
growth?
Cringe
What's
lord.
that?
It's
What is that?
amazing how fast it just re-references Arc 2, where he and Puck cannot stop bothering Amelia when she's trying to do anything productive. And it's just constantly like,
Yep.
can you be quiet? Can you please be quiet? Well, I gave up
Silence!
because you two couldn't stop talking.
Yep.
It's also showing of Subaru's like rash, like unthinking behavior. He immediately picks up a book. Who they've talked about how this probably sapped your memories or something. I don't know.
Beatrice watching in horror.
It's just, oh,
Oh, thank you, Jack.
Thank you, Jack.
Oh, thank you.
My lord. More Arc
Here
7
it
and 8
comes.
funds.
thank you.
Let go.
Also, Shallow ripping the From Zero line.
Yeah.
Yeah, how
That was-
dare she?
I'm so
Who the fuck
glad.
does she think she is?
I'm so glad. If I can't be Rem, at least I have that, you know.
Literally, no one here has ever heard him say this other than like in his speech to Amelia.
Come
Zero.
It's even worse because
Regu-
that hit her saying that is genuinely a negative thing for Subaru. He's like, who the fuck are you? What?
Yeah,
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
not
if Subaru had
Amnesia
his
Baru.
memories,
Yeah.
if Subaru had his memories, he'd be like, huh? Wait, go back on that. Go back on that. What the hell?
Yeah, you wouldn't enjoy that if it was a non-amnesia Subaru.
Oh, if he heard it with his regular memories, it would probably just spur him to try and be more productive and work harder, like as a
Mhm.
reminder for like why they're here again.
Even if he would be
Yeah,
pissed
he
off at
probably,
Chorla
like-
for referencing it in the first
Yeah,
place.
he'd probably be like, hey, you're ruining a really good moment right now, and then there'd be some inner monologue about
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
but what
exactly.
she said really pushed him forward. or
It'd be like,
something, you know,
I hate
that.
that you're right now.
But
Yeah.
it's it's weird seeing this Arc 1 Subaru again, and you're really thinking, wow, like, as Tiani was saying earlier, character development, it's a thing. Like, it really hits you in the face, like, just how, regardless of how similar they are, how different they are too, right?
Yeah.
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 Different thinking, different reactions. Well,
I mean, because this Subaru's just so, like, Subaru's already someone who lies to himself often, even as Arc 6 Subaru, but at least he's doing a better job of doing it to other people. This Subaru is lying to himself and everyone around him with the way he's reacting to things. Like, just, it's so insincere.
And he's a lot more
Completely forgotten how to
passive, too.
read. That's the worst part.
Yeah.
Poor
All
buddy.
that progress just gone.
I mean, but, like, from his perspective, right, all of these people have an expectation of a relationship with him. He is isolated. He's by himself. He doesn't really know who these people are. So whilst it's convenient for him that he's got people that can guide him, he's also simultaneously, like, maybe thinking, can I trust these people? Like, who are they? Who are they really?
Yeah.
Who
It's-
are you?
And I'm so sorry.
Not to mention that, as he mentioned, the only people that he doesn't feel uncomfortable even speaking with are the other two most useless people in the room.
The other outcasts in this situation, yeah. But that's because he can kind of group
Yeah.
himself with them. Oh, we're all the weirdos, yeah.
We're the bum corner.
Team Outcast. Woo, woo.
They have all got the dunce cap on because none of them can read.
Oh no.
Shit. You're so right, though.
yeah.
I'm just
Are we all
glad we
set
haven't got
for-
a repeat of the early Arc 2 fucking chair kissing shit. Oh,
No,
Oh
no.
god. Oh god.
Well, no, because Amelia
God.
has beat him to it with the affections this time, and he's freaking out
Yep.
because he's not in
because
control
someone,
of the.
it's the
the
opposite
advancements.
problem where it's like, oh wait, someone does like
Yep.
me. That's wrong. What the fuck?
Ew,
No
gross.
offense,
What are
no
these
defense
feelings?
Guy. He's like, wait. Why do you care about me? You know,
'Cause he-
what's going on here?
He can ruin this. Like, if someone doesn't like him yet, then no matter how awful he acts, it's not like that's gonna make them stop liking him.
Mhm.
Whereas here, if he does anything wrong, then he runs that risk.
It's the exact same. It's a very similar issue, I think, of his feelings towards his parents, right? Where like he wants them to hate him because of how he feels about himself, but like he can't detach himself from that because they're his parents, right? If these people have a preconceived relationship with him, no matter how weird he acts right now, they're not going to detach himself from him, and that's gonna
Mhm.
all
I
the
don't
self-worth
deserve
problems
that.
will come
Like,
flaring.
why?
Let's see if that's a trend that continues with chapter
Yeah,
37.
I wonder.
Oh yeah.
Yo,
wonder.
ready
There's only
for
one way to
this?
find out.
Yeah, let's do it.
Alright, take us away, Tealdi.
I don't know if we all are ready for this, but okay, here we go. Yeah. All right. Arc 6, Chapter 37, A Paper Mache's Dream. The search of the third floor library, Tegeta, had ended with absolutely no results.
I'm sorry. We tried really hard to look for clues.
Amelia bowed her head in apology towards Subaru after bringing him those fruitless results. Subaru politely accepted the apology, but in all honesty, he wasn't that disappointed. Of course, it certainly would have been for the best if he could have regained his memories here. Nevertheless, he was lacking in awareness in having lost his memories in the first place, so Subaru did not feel overly emotional that the search party had yielded unsuccessful results.
Master, what's up?
It's nothing.
Shala glanced towards him, cocking her head at him with a happy-go-lucky expression on her face. Subaru shrugged his shoulders, feeling a bit uneasy at the sight of her and her long, jet-black braided hair swinging about. There was no ill will, malice, or even any profound meaning to her. In the end, it meant she wasn't really thinking about anything, but her attitude being like this appeared as a relief to Subaru right now. At least it was better than having the others always scrutinizing what he did, constantly worrying over him, and watching over every single step of his.
Apparently, there does not seem to be a pattern to how the books are arranged. It is difficult to picture them being ordered following their titles or following chronological order. And on the flip side, books which we would have found yesterday on one bookshelf cannot be found today on the same one.
So the library is unhelpful and troublesome too, huh?
Subaru wrinkled his nose at Julius's remarks. Not only did the library boast an overwhelming collection of books, but the books happened to move about scrambling themselves on their own accord, giving him absolutely no hope as a library user. Even if there happened to be a book they needed, they would never find it.
Why can't we just pull out each book one by one and stack them onto the floor? There's no bookshelf at the back, since the bookshelves all go around in the room in a circle. But say we pick a starting point and go through them one by one. Surely we'll find something somewhere.
In my opinion, it would be wiser not to. Probably doing that would be prohibited by the tower's rules. It would probably be considered as disrespecting the library.
Echidna, cocking her head to one side, dismissed Subaru's suggestion. Beatrice crossed her arms and agreed with Echidna with a curt, "I suppose." Being an experienced librarian, Betty could never overlook leaving a book on the floor, in fact. You cannot show such disrespect to books like that, I suppose.
Beatrice-sama, I feel like you often left a large number of books stacked on the floor.
Those were the ones that instructed me how to correctly arrange the library, in fact. Rom narrowed her pale crimson eyes at Beatrice's awkward excuse, though she didn't bother to reply. She merely let out a deep sigh, to which Beatrice's expression turned to one of shock. Alongside this librarian talk, Subaru butted in and said, "Prohibited?" with a puzzled expression on his face.
I'm sorry. It looks like this is something I've not heard of. Again. What is prohibited?
Oh, sorry. Looks like I didn't explain it properly.
Emilia raised one of her fingers in answer to Subaru.
In actual fact, there's a bunch of rules that we can't break in the tower. Like, such as, don't leave this tower until we finish its examinations. Don't do anything bad to the library. Don't damage the tower. Those kind of rules.
I see. Who would have guessed that putting books on the floor in this library was a bad thing? By the way, who judges whether we've broken any rules?
Oh, that's where I come in. Me, the Star Keeper, will do that. Meaning, if a rule violation happens, I'll kind of end up freaking out and I'll become a cold-blooded Satsujin Kakai. That's why I'd prefer you did your best not to.
A cold-blooded Satsujin Kikai! You!
Could only laugh dubiously at Shala, who had cheerfully lifted her hands up whilst making this proclamation. No matter how much he believes Shala's frivolous speech, he thought it unlikely that she could ever transform into a cold-blooded killing machine. In the first place, how much damage could she really do with the slender arms of a woman? Would that even be applicable in a magical fantasy world? In fact, Super had heard that Shala was not his or Amelia's ally, but rather was the Star Keeper, the warden of this Pleiades watchtower. She held a non-standard position different from that of Meili, supposedly being here to aid in advancing the examinations inside the tower. Yet he had no impression of her actually doing this.
If you seriously hold such an important position, you're gonna have to let us off the hook for the sake of our friendship.
Oh, you are such a bad guy. Master is seriously, Kosuku. But I can't get enough of that slightly wicked side of yours. There's tons and tons of stuff I'd like to hear from you. Were it one of your wishes, Master. But that is irrelevant to my will. Give up on that hope and show good sportsmanship. Act fair and square and give it your all.
You're no use!
Ah!
His strategy of trying to bring the warden to his side ended with unexpected failure, as her authority as a supervisor was too lacking. At the same time, he had to keep Shala's forehead away with his finger as she kept trying to bring her face close to his in the middle of the conversation, forcing her charming face back. And while doing that, Subaru let out a feeble sigh.
It really kind of seems like Subaru and Shala are both really good friends.
Emilia whispered this just after Subaru had finished talking with Shala. Hearing Emilia whisper it to him, Subaru turned to face her and awkwardly stammered a, No, that isn't so, to her. His attempt to lighten the mood of the situation was not working. Subaru immediately stopped upon seeing Emilia's expression with eyes downcast. Emilia was not smiling. Merely her eyes, framed by her long lashes, were gazing downwards, and wavering within her amethyst eyes was a seeming sense of loneliness. Subaru's face sunk at seeing her expression, and immediately noticing his reaction, Emilia frantically waved her hands back and forth at him in denial.
Oh, no, it's really good that you're both friends. Such a gloomy face does not suit you, Subaru. Yeah, it's okay.
Meaning a smile, Emilia somehow blurted those words out to herself.
Amelia-chan! You know, I...
Subaru held his head as he struggled to find anything he could say to Emilia. He felt like he would be saying the wrong thing no matter what he said. Likely, the only way he could find a correct answer would be amidst his vanished memories. He was in a nightmarish situation where all the options presented were probably incorrect answers. Under these circumstances, saying anything to the sad girl sitting in front of him would be...
Hey, so what are we gonna do now?
A soft voice broke the recently formed awkward silence. It had been Meili, who had asked this from where she sat on Taygeta's floor, resting her chin in her hands. She looked up at the adults in the room from her seated position and spoke.
We can't find any leads on to recovering Onisan's memories here. It's a shame. Not that I particularly care, but I wonder what we should do next. Are we still trying to find clues on how he lost his memories, or...
Meili cut her words off there, instead turning her face upwards and pointed at the ceiling with her right hand. She was smiling quite provocatively.
Let's aim upwards again. Let's postpone finding Onisan's memories for a short while.
Yes, that seems like something to consider as well.
Having heard Meili's suggestion, it was Echidna who responded with a thoughtful look on her face. Emilia's eyes widened at hearing her agreement.
Wait, I feel the same sense of wanting to hurry, but I can't leave Subaru like he is. I understand your view. It would certainly be preferable for me, Julius, and everyone to return Natsuki-kun's memory. However, we cannot ignore the current situation either. Natsuki-kun's memories ceasing to exist may be linked to the tower's examination. Subaru's memories are linked to the examination?
It was not just Emilia who reacted like this. The others all turned their heads in surprise towards Echidna as she said this. With that response, Echidna closed one of her eyes and spoke, "May I?"
There is no doubt that common sense barely applies when it comes to this tower. However, it would be foolish to think what happened to Natsuki-kun is unrelated to the tower. That's why we all went to Taygeta in the first place. To put it broadly, the current idea is that his memories were taken from him by the tower.
I think that sounds Chinubio and cool and all, the memories can be stolen by the tower. If it weren't me experiencing this, I would be excited to hear about that. But, to begin with, Taygeta's examination has been completed. Wouldn't it be strange that my memories would be removed here?
Yes. Therefore, I think that your memories were not stolen because of the examination, but rather because you must have broken one of the rules. Even if the examination of Tegeta is over, the functions of the tower have not been fully fulfilled, such as taking a book or disrespecting the library.
Echidna had explained her reasoning, and Subaru puzzled it over, twisting his head and neck. In conclusion, Echidna's reasoning alluded to the following.
So, you're basically saying, yesterday, I must have broken one of the rules of this place, and BAM! My head went kablow! To be honest, trying to search for Loop House sounds like something I would do. I'm not able to make any objection to her reasoning.
But wouldn't that have made Shala angry?
Echidna nodded at Subaru, acknowledging her conclusion. However, Emilia butted in and pointed towards Shala, clearly remembering their previous interaction.
If he had violated any rules, wouldn't that have made Shala angry? It should be a completely different story to what we're experiencing here with his memories.
That is correct. I understand the possibility that Barasu broke the rules foolishly, but Shala has not bared her fangs yet at Ram or at any of you. What do you make of that?
Ram glared at Shala with her cerise eyes. Beholding her gaze, Shala leapt up with an eep and hid behind Subaru.
There is no way that you would have seriously abandoned your role because of Barasu? That is very optimistic of you to say, for certain. However, as Miss Shala said some time ago, she is barely aware of her being the one who actually carries out the punishments in this tower.
Shrugging his shoulders, Julius stood next to Echidna, supporting her opinion.
4 things which are prohibited have been presented to us, but the given penalty for breaking one of them may not be equal for us. Miss Shala could turn into our enemy and in some cases attack. But, for example, desecrating the library in some way could result in having your memories stolen.
Julius cut his words off there and promptly turned his yellow eyes towards Subaru. There were some really complex emotions swimming inside Julius's eyes, which Subaru could not discern. However, Julius immediately continued his speech with, although.
We do not have any time or actual proof to test whether this guess is correct. If memory loss is really all there is, then we can just sacrifice the 4 or 5 hours of memory that Barasu has had since waking up. That ensures that the damage will be minimal.
Stop using people's memories as guinea pigs! Memories still shape that person! Even if it's only 4 or 5 hours, I'm still myself! I'm not a bad Natsuki Subaru!
I was joking.
Subaru's entire body shivered at Ram's blunt remark, which had been spoken behind his back. Whether it had been a joke or not, Subaru had no clue. It was likely it was. Dare he say that her lofty attitude was probably just a facade. Even though only a short while had passed since meeting her, it was probably in her nature to wish not to show any weakness to people. In the end, it would not surprise him if she just wished to erase her embarrassment from the time when Subaru had seen her frail side. Anyways, whether Echidna and Julius's reasoning was correct or not, that one possibility was worth considering. Simultaneously, Subaru also had a thought regarding his memory loss. That was...
To put things plainly, both of your opinions, regardless of whether they have a nugget of truth within it, I'm against grasping at straws here. Even if we just start floundering around, I don't really get the feeling that the memories I lost will be found, you know?
Do you have anything as grounds for thinking so?
Just a hunch. Besides, if this really is part of the tower's examination, then maybe if we clear them, I'll get my memories back. Right?
Subaru wagged his finger left and right as Amelia and the others exchanged looks in response to his words. However, they hadn't reacted negatively to his thoughts out of doubt. Rather, there was a trace of hope beginning to appear on their faces. Firmly, placing a palm on her chest, Amelia began to rapidly nod.
Yes, that's right. If Subaru's memories have been slurped up by the tower, then surely they may have been returned after completing its examinations.
The expression you used, being slurped up, I could get quite the super keep feeding from it. But that's the spirit! That's the spirit!
Mm-hmm. That's the spirit.
Subaru smiled in relief at Amelia as she had jumped up and made a cute, triumphant pose. Beatrice, who had been looking on, shook her head in exasperation. Please, I really don't understand which one of you is the one being encouraged, in fact. So she let it out like that. Certainly, with this, their positions were opposites. However, Subaru thought that was fine. After all, he had found some hope in this situation, and some of the vigor had returned to Amelia's eyes. For that, Subaru had felt quite a sense of relief. Such a gloomy face did not suit a young lady like her. Besides, she had been worrying about Subaru from the depths of her heart. It was quite painful to think that he had been the reason behind making her look so gloomy.
And I was the one who made such a move on a woman way out of my league.
I have no idea what he is saying, but for now we will adjourn finding Subaru's memory, I suppose. So if we are to complete the tower's examinations, we should do as Maylee suggested and go upstairs, in fact.
Upstairs! So, you said we were on the 3rd floor now, so the next floor up is the 2nd!
As he said that, Subaru looked around the library, a room that he'd surveyed more than plenty, even without having actually walked around it. A room with nothing in it except bookshelves, meaning there were no stairs that led up.
Where's the staircase that leads to the 2nd floor?
It is located on the 4th floor. There's a staircase there that leads up to the 2nd floor.
Amelia sneaked a look towards Julius, with a concern plastered on her face. Seeing her, Julius knitted his eyebrows and said, "Worry not."
I will not act rashly without consulting any of you like I did yesterday. It is as I promised at breakfast. However, even if I had not done so... Reed, the first-generation Sword Saint is a very powerful opponent. Now then, what do you suppose we should do?
Julius and Rom exchanged bitter looks, and those that seemed to share this feeling was not limited to just those two. Everyone at this place had a similar look on their faces. Or rather, other than Shala, who had grimaced like she had put something in her mouth that was not just bitter, but poisonous.
Sorry. What is that? Reed?
As usual, it was Natsuki Subaru that had been left behind in this situation. The first-generation Sword Saint, Reed Estrella. That was the name of the man who guarded the 2nd floor of Pleiades' watchtower as its examiner. In the first place, the title of Sword Saint was something Subaru had heard for his first time. However, when he had heard that he was of the 1st generation of this lineage, he got the premonition that this man could be likened to a powerful fictional character from his knowledge of these subcultures. That expectation of his was not betrayed, and in fact these Sword Saints, or whatever, were extremely powerful people. It seemed that yesterday, having challenged Reed, the party had experienced a difference in strength between them, much like the difference between an adult and a child. Amongst them, that only Amelia had achieved some sort of victory through both skill and luck was a big deal.
The problem is that I've lost my memory. I can't even do anything useful.
At the breakfast table, where everyone had been trying to distract themselves from their uneasiness, he had tried to think of a novel idea to clear the tower with a bang. As far as he knew, the examination of the 2nd floor seemed to require pure strength. In this situation, There was no place at all for his guile or knowledge of the modern world.
I guess scattering some flour about and attacking with a dust explosion or something like that ain't gonna cut it.
His strongest signature ability, Dust Explosion, he would need to fine-tune quite a large amount of flour to achieve it. In the first place, Super did not have the courage to scatter an abundant amount of flour in a situation where food was scarce. In fact, it was unknown to him whether there was any flour at all here.
Then, I hope I can activate the secret Urawaza ability that I must have gotten from being summoned into this world.
Subaru punched the wall next to him with his palm, yelling out a "Ha!" in an attempt to see if he could activate it. There was no shockwave emitted from his palm, nor had the stone wall he had punched shattered into little pieces. The only thing he felt was the roughness against his palm and a somewhat hollow pang in his heart. Unfortunately, the secret cheat ability that had been given to Subaru seemed to not be related to great physical strength. He placed his hands on the wall and kicked it with all his might. All that resulted was that he had unexpectedly left a footprint on the place he had kicked the wall, as well as a stubbed toe. Off the mark yet again.
Whoa! It must be magic! Beatrice, tell me how to use some magic!
Magic, Subaru can never use that ever again, in fact.
Ever again? Why? Did I dabble into a forbidden spell or something?
You used too much novice's magic despite being told not to use it, and it broke your gate, I suppose. That's why Subaru will never be able to use magic again, in fact.
It broke from using novice's magic? Oh, so lame!
Subaru had the urge to cry out to the heavens for being an unimaginable failure, having heard that he indeed had possessed magical powers, but could not use them anymore to live life as a mage. And worst of all, it had been the casting of novice's magic that had destroyed his magical gate. Regardless of his loss of memories, Natsuki Subaru's life in a different world had started from the very bottom.
Guess at least my saving grace is that I've been blessed with people.
Clenching his hand into a fist, and then unclenching it, Subaru felt these emotions along with a profound sigh. Even if it was rather one-sided, it was relieving that there were people here who knew him. Without them, he would have been alone in this unknown world without any special abilities. To be honest, he did not think he was skillful enough to survive without any support. So, finding himself here was a salvation, even if it had made someone's face sink. Gulping, Subaru bent and stretched on the spot. He had checked the condition of his body, of his magic, and whether he had any special abilities. They were in some impromptu free time before they went up to the second floor, whilst Amelia and the others were making the arrangements to challenge the wall that was the second floor. Subaru was busying himself in checking whether his body had been endowed with any special abilities. After punching and kicking the wall, after being indignant about being told his magical ability had run dry, after running around the tower's insides, after thinking on how to test for special powers from various directions, Subaru had realized one thing. That was...
That maybe I haven't received anything.
After sprinting through the hallway, while slightly out of breath, Subaru had accepted this as fact. He felt like he possessed more physical strength than he did before. Even when he had kicked the wall, he felt as if his hip suppleness was different from what he remembered. However, it was not to be confused for special powers. Rather, it would be more accurate to say that it was the same consequence of the scars on his body and his grotesque-looking arm. In other words, it was probably due to what happened during the year which Subaru could not remember. The only ability he possessed was to merely be an ordinary person who could not even respond to his parents' expectations, something that would have been attained after a suitable amount of endeavor. He could not feel the grace of special abilities granted to him by a so-called god.
At first, I tried to do some transformation poses.
He had tried super senshi poses, then common rider poses, pretty cute poses, and even sailor senshi poses. But they had all been ineffective, meaning that, in the end, he was the type of parallel world visitor who had been thrown in here with nary a thing.
After all of that, my only hope is that my powers awaken when I'm in trouble. Fuck.
Scratching his head, Super bit down the seeds of anxiety that were starting to grow in his heart. In front of Amelia and the others, he would have steeled himself and pretended that everything was okay. However, when looking at the situation anew, there was nothing but anxiety regarding Subaru's position. His memory was gone. There was no longer any doubt about it. There was too much evidence pointing towards it, and to be honest, he really wanted to believe it. He couldn't not believe it and continue to stay in this place. He wanted to stay here in this world, only here right now. So he wanted the power to do that.
In the end, I have to depend on the bonds I've made with people I don't even remember. I'm gonna cry.
Natsuki Subaru, who was always mooching off stuff, did not have any changes to him, even in this parallel world. The more Amelia and the others showed how earnestly they were worried about Subaru, the more Subaru cursed himself for being blessed with his borrowed position.
It's not like I'm gonna be able to do anything on the second floor.
And that was why, in his heart, he had refused to be left behind. After they had explained to him about the guardian of the second floor, Reed Estrella, there had been some disagreement among Amelia and the others on whether to bring Subaru along to the examination. It had been Amelia who was most concerned about bringing him along, and the others, albeit not as vehemently as Amelia, were a bit reluctant on having Subaru accompany them. Subaru, on the other hand, wished to accompany them. It seemed that they had thought that he would be unlikely to be of much help to them in conquering the second floor, and they had also mentioned that Reed Estrella's temperament would be harmful towards him. Therefore, had it kept going like that, Subaru was going to be left behind.
Still, I insisted on going with them.
The reason why they had tried to leave Subaru behind was because they were worried about his body. Being treated so gently with concern, always on their mind, felt delightfully poisonous to Subaru right now. Had he been the Natsuki Subaru with his memories intact, he was sure that he would have accompanied them, and that there would never have been such a discussion on whether he was coming or not. It would be unlikely that his amnesia would influence his abilities. In other words, except for the lack of knowledge, Subaru had thought he would be able to perform the same tasks as he did before he lost his memories. Hence, he had tried one way or another to prove it to them. But in the end, he had not achieved any results.
Although I asked
Beatrice to leave me alone,
from here
on out, the going's gonna get tough.
He recalled the little girl's sullen face on seeing that Subaru was about to be left behind. However, he had still asked her to leave him be to try to ascertain whether his secret cheat ability was something physical, magical, or skill-based. After she left, Subaru had tried out the transformation poses. After all, it would have been extremely embarrassing to test these poses in front of another person. Beatrice, of course, had been quite unyielding, and Subaru recalled how he had argued back and forth with her. If Subaru is left alone, you're going to end up losing your memories. Nothing good will come of it, in fact. Betty will not move from here even with a lever, I suppose.
I'm glad you feel that way! I'm totally grateful, but I'm about to do some stuff that I can't show to anyone!
Between Betty and Subaru, such distance isn't needed, in fact.
No! I will be getting naked to put on my Getsumi Keisho!
And so, he had tried to break through to her with a brute force approach, zealously appealing her to leave the room. Eventually, seeing how nothing was working, they had managed to sort out things, with Beatrice receiving his strong appeal that he would not do anything unnecessary, and would without fail join back up with her.
Although it doesn't ring a bell, I was told I was her contractor. On that point, it seemed like it was going well with Beatrice. That doesn't sound like me. Was that really me?
Grimacing a little, Subaru pulled out something from his waist, the whip that had been holstered there, and lashed it out, attempting to hit the wall with its tip, but instead only succeeding in hitting his own leg.
Ow! Oh, I guess my body doesn't remember how to use it. Oh, I didn't... Or maybe... Oh, I didn't master its use before losing my memory.
He hit his own shin. Subaru's eyes began to tear up in pain as he rubbed it. In the first place, why had he chosen a whip as his weapon of choice? It was not a sword or a gun. Was he trying to be cool and unique, picking a whip as his weapon?
If I'd been able to use it, then I guess it must mean that it's not just the stuff inside of my head that's gone missing.
While rubbing his shin, Subaru mulled over this as he knelt, his face twisting into a scowl at the chance that it really would not be salvageable. If his current reasoning was indeed correct, what was left for him here? He had lost his memories, made those he was supposed to accompany worry, lost everything he had worked towards, and became useless. Ultimately, with only history having been etched onto his body, and merely the outer shell was set in place. Yes, he was just like paper mache. With a short sigh, Subaru got up. Those words that were floating in his brain were so silly that he wanted to guffaw at them. What are you going to do now, you paper mache? When wasn't Natsuki Subaru a paper mache?
Ugh! I give up! I give up! I'm an idiot! Maybe I'm just unmotivating myself.
Subaru brought his fist to his forehead in frustration and sighed again, bending over to pick up the fallen whip. He did not understand how to put it back to how it was. Struggling a bit, he finally managed to somehow put it back on his waist. As he did so, there he saw a blister on the palm of his hand. One that was different from those he got from swinging a kendo sword. One that made him feel the year that had gone by. For some reason, he traced it with his tongue. It felt tough. It felt bitter.
I wish I kept a diary for this occasion. This is no use.
Subaru started to walk away from the scene, fuming at his past self in irrational anger. He had been unable to confirm the presence of any secret cheat abilities, but in a sense, he could say the fact he could not was a trove of information. With this in mind, he concluded that he should not rely on something that did not exist. In a way, it was a bit positive, but way more of a negative.
Well, this isn't the right way.
Subaru had gone the wrong way and found himself on another floor. In front of him was a large spiral staircase, an abnormally long spiral staircase which led to the lower floors of the tower. He had heard that the tower consisted of 6 floors, and that to ascend from the 6th floor to the 4th floor, one would have to climb stairs that possibly went hundreds of meters high.
Thinking about it, the way this tower's structured is peculiar. It's like being in a Kuso world story now.
It was a world where foliage could treat your injuries by being within it. Besides, in his original world, there had been some buildings which seemed to be beyond human understanding. Pyramids were one example of such a phenomenon. Thinking about it hard enough, then maybe there was not much of a difference between this tower and the pyramids.
I'm looking for things in common between this world and my original world. Did the past me do this too?
Subaru began to feel ridiculous at having referred to himself as the past me. He felt as if he had slowly been going crazy ever since losing his memories. In essence, there had not been a Subaru before, or was there a Subaru after losing his memories? The past and the present too. His self was all one continuum. So, here too, Natsuki Subaru was...
Huh?
Subaru shook his head, much like trying to shake off the thoughts that had clouded his mind, and let out a small sigh. It was truly a nonchalant sigh. He had exhaled completely unintentionally, despite having received something much more unexpected. It was no more and no less than that. However, at the same time he had let out that breath, he had felt a slight push on his back.
Huh?
And as he let out that sigh, which was tantamount to no more than that, the world was flipped upside down.
Huh?
His feet were off the ground. No, not just his feet. His whole body was. His whole body was detached from firm soil. He was falling down midair, losing sight of heaven and earth, overwhelmed by a feeling of weightlessness, engulfed by the sensation of lightness. The existence that was Natsuki Subaru fell.
What?
The fierce sound of wind whistled through his eardrums. He did not understand. He did not understand anything. Right now, Natsuki Subaru was falling. He was falling, spinning round and round in midair as he fell down head first. Falling, 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 and as he fell, his thoughts caught up to him. Still falling.
Wait! 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 Wait!
The world revolved in his vision. His limbs were flailing in midair. He did not know how many seconds had elapsed, but finally, Subaru understood what had happened. Falling. He was falling. He was going to crash. He would hit the ground after falling from above. He was swallowed by darkness as he fell past the spiral staircase. As he looked around desperately to all around him, Subaru could only see the tower's stone walls flowing past him at high speed. No, the walls were not flowing past him. As he fell down headfirst, Subaru's field of vision had been inverted, so it was in fact him who was sweeping past them. The sensation of tumbling down caused him to retch, chunks of vomit flying out of him. His throat clogged with vomit, Subaru was unable to even draw breath. His nose stung, tears of pain were streaming out of him, and his organs felt like they were all in the wrong place. His whole body felt like a chaotic mess. His face, clothes, and surely the floor would have ended up flecked with vomit. Emilia would be shocked. Beatrice would get angry at him. Rom would just coldly stare at him. Julius would give him a tired sigh. Echidna would shrug her shoulders. Meili would laugh. Shala would point at him. With such a feeling of frustration, Subaru had completely lost track of his own reality. Even if he searched everywhere, he could not find it. Not up in the sky, not within himself. Where had it gone? Where was it? As well as his memory, he had also lost himself.
Mum!
Natsuki Subaru fainted just as that acrid mutter escaped from him. His consciousness halted, his thoughts blurred together, and then, and then, and then, and then, hard ground.
Subaru? Hey, Subaru, are you okay?
As he woke up, the first thing he heard was her chiming, silver bell voice. He could feel her breath near his face and her fingers on his arm. Sensing this, Subaru roused himself into consciousness and slowly opened his heavy eyelids.
Before
In front
me.
of him was a frighteningly good-looking fairy of the moon.
Is this... Amelia, John?
Oh, Subaru, thank goodness. You woke up. I was really worried about you.
Subaru speak. The girl at his front, Amelia, stroked her chest with a relieved look on her face. Subaru looked around the room in shock. He was in a room completely covered in ivy. Even the bed he was lying in, woven from ivy. Amelia was gently patting her chest in relief, and right next to her stood a beautiful little girl with drills. Amelia, if you continue to be so gentle to him, Super will not reflect on his actions, I suppose. If you don't say it more severely, Betty and the others' worries won't get through to Subaru, in fact.
I guess you're right. But I'm surprised Beatrice would be saying that. After going into such a panic when we couldn't find Subaru, you were almost in tears when you found him lying there.
The part that dispenses mentioning, I suppose. Beatrice turned away from them, her face reddening in anger at Amelia's innocent remarks. Subaru, who was watching this exchange, looked on in confusion.
Huh? What? Was it a dream?
Huh?
At hearing Subaru say that, both Amelia and Beatrice turned towards him.
Dun, dun,
And that's the end of the
dun.
chapter. Blah.
He called out for his mum!
Yeah.
Woo! First loop as Amnesia
Yeah.
Baru.
Huzzah.
Oh.
You all discuss. I'll be right back.
Yeah, okay.
Vomited upside down, dude. Ugh.
Ugh.
We lost Connor partway through that, so he will not be with us because his internet went down. Great work. Oh, he's in the chat still.
He's
That-
still with us in some way.
Hearing that voice acted was even worse than reading that
Yeah.
originally.
Yeah.
Because I initially was like, oh, is the mom, the cry for mom a whimper? No, that was,
Yeah.
oh.
Mama.
'Cause-
Mama.
Oh, he's vomiting, falling downwards, so all the vomit's also rushing upwards.
Yeah.
I hate how often Taipei includes that part. It actually drives me nuts.
The worst thing is it just makes it so much more real, though. It's not... You're not
Yeah.
hearing him scream his mum, like, him screaming mum because he can't. It's just so sad.
It
Like...
is sad.
I think it hits even harder because he never really... He's not in any loop before ever, like, said that, right? As he's dying.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes it hit
Yeah.
harder, is that because he's alive for so long, but also so confused, in that split second of moment, his thoughts go to his mum as he goes.
He's never been in a scenario like this where he's just been waiting to die, essentially.
Yeah.
Like this for so long. The entire falling sequence takes place over a page and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he has that much time to contemplate in his mind that he is going to die. And this is a Subaru that doesn't know about Return by Death.
Yeah.
He genuinely thinks he's dying.
And he's probably thinking of his mum because to him, the last thing he saw from his family was his mum saying goodbye to him.
And he never got to say.
And he never
Goodbye
got to say
back.
goodbye back.
Let that cup in the sink.
This Subaru doesn't have the closure that Arc 4 Subaru does. So to him, he just died without ever saying goodbye to his mum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's the thing he regretted most at the end, because I mean, like, all this crazy stuff that's been happening to him, you know, that within the last day, it's something that he just puts aside because it's like, you know, whatever, they laugh at me, but I do regret not being able to say bye to my mother for one last time.
Mm-hmm. Cry!
Depression!
Depression arc has begun.
Yeah.
And it's here to stay!
Yeah.
Suffering.
He did draw a similar conclusion, bizarrely, as the first time. He looped in Arc 1, which was like, huh? Was I just, like, tripping
Dreaming?
out or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, was that a dream?
I think this
So
one was
something
a lot
really
more. I think this one was a lot more like in his face of, was it a dream? Because the other one, because the first time in Arc 1, he kind of was like, oh wait, the loot house, kind of just didn't even really think.
Yeah,
on it
like
as
the
much.
shock and trauma of the situation made him think, oh, it's just another day, right? Something weird has happened, and it was like something strange. To him here, it's almost like he's like had a hallucination, but it becomes stranger when the people that were in there have just shown up immediately to talk to him, right? So he's probably extremely
Yep.
confused.
The situation's also even worse than that first, like, at least with that first death. He had someone, you know, there beside him as he died. Someone that he was like, you know what? Like, I swear, you know, even as I'm dying, that I'll protect you. Here he has no one.
Mhm.
He is
Yeah.
falling for these minutes alone down all this distance, and
Not only sad, but
he's
super
gotten it
rude.
way worse.
Yeah, this is
He's gotten
a
it
Subaru that
worse.
started off in a way worse situation. The even worse thing here is that he can't say that he's forgotten everyone again because he's just said Amelia and Beatrice's names, right?
Yeah.
He has no way to in a way that I think can make sense and not seem suspicious, communicate that he doesn't know what's going on. So he's already backed into a corner just by reacting naturally to what the situation has become.
Yep. Now they're like, hey, what do you mean you don't remember us? You just said our names, like,
Yeah.
Yeah, about that.
Subaru's
yeah.
Subaru's fucked.
Story, eh?
He's in a worse position than he was at the beginning of the last loop, I guess, because now we're in
Yeah.
a new loop.
Yep.
This also ends like I imagine as these chapters were initially coming out, right? People were theorizing. Wait, so if he loops, does he get his memories back? Is this a weird just like skip? Nope.
He's gone.
Buggered.
He's boggered.
Because I remember when I was going through it, I was like, okay, there's two ways you can play this. Either it's he loops back to after his memories are gone, or he like loops back before his memories gone with the new memories from, you know, then, and then he has to figure out like what's taking away his memories after a certain point in time. But this is just it's bad.
This is like the coolest thing you can do.
It's just so bad.
How do we financially
Ugh.
recover from this? Answer: we don't.
You never will.
We can't. This is honestly, actually, I can't even say dead run go next because he doesn't even know what the runs are. So
Yeah.
Wee.
I mean, and it's really sad to say because we've already had one in this arc at the beginning where he's kind of had like a pointless death almost, where like he's not really gained too much from this, right?
Mhm.
And he can't even think of it in that way because he doesn't have the experience of return by death. But like this is just another tragic scenario of like him learning the information he's learned is actually kind of a detriment to him in this next loop.
yes, yeah, it's a downside, right? We saw at the very end, with the thoughts that he had, the other people would, you know, think of him as he was dying and vomiting. You know, oh yeah, they looked down on me, they be disappointed in me. Like, I'm not living up to them, you know. And even if he's like, now it's, oh well, I guess that was a dream. I guess I got to start again. He already has that internalized, like, conception that everyone around him are thinking of him in a different way.
Yeah.
That doesn't go away.
Fun times!
Yeah. On that note,
Yeah.
thanks for being with us for depression today. Just as an announcement, because I
And
totally
drunk.
forgot, we won't be continuing this Saturday. I'm so sorry. I have a teacher
No.
softball game, but we will continue next Wednesday. So
Well, that works out because I have a convention this weekend, so that's okay.
Yay!
It always ends up
Wahoo!
working out. It's always one or two people that are busy at the same
does.
time.
Yes, especially this time of year. Holy moly!
Yes.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
But we will be back to you guys next week.
Hi.
And not drunk.
And not drunk.
Not drunk. Cry.
Yeah, not drunk.
Falling.
Apologies.
Oh my gosh, no, don't. All right, everybody. Thank you and good night.
Good night, everyone. Bye-bye.